This is the Giraffes Don't Eat Steak podcast, a show that brings you marketing stories, tips, hints, and much more. A treat for those who want to succeed in business or marketers who just want to learn. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Erica. How are you doing?
I am good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
Good, good. And I am so pleased to bring to our podcast today my friend Lucia. Lucia, how are
Hey,
you?
Hi,
I'm
Lucia.
good. I'm good. Thank you. Nice to see you both. And Alex, well, nice to attach a face actually to your voice. It was good.
So Lucia and I met at a marketing expo and we actually chatted, I think for half an hour, which is just one of those moments that we clicked and about the importance and the difference between business development and sales and marketing, right? Because obviously we love marketing, and how many people lump them all together and then miss some key steps. And I thought, we've had Mikhail on talking about sales. What a wonderful opportunity to introduce Lucia to our audience.
Yeah, also because like you said, like there isn't really a time limit for this, but I do remember our conversation. And on this specific topic, I could rant for hours. So I'm not sure we have all that time, but I'll try to limit myself a little bit.
No worries. Well, as you know, I'm also a chatter. So, Alex, you're going to have to keep us in check. You've got
All right.
Yeah.
you've got two chatters on here today. So, Lucia, introduce Alex. Obviously, doesn't know you. Introduce us to you, your business. What is business development?
Yes, so everyone, nice to meet you all. I'm Lucia. I'm the founder of a company called the BD School, which stands for the Business Development School, hence my passion for business development versus sales, I would say. I started this company actually 6 years ago. In February, 5th of February is going to be 6 years, actually. So quite excited about. Thank you. Yeah, like as a startup, like if you manage to make it to the 6th year, like you did something right. Maybe not everything, but you survived, so that's good. And yeah, I started this company after 9 years working in business development, maybe a bit more than 9 years. And the reason why I started is that personally, when I started in BD, I kind of like I found myself randomly in business development. So I needed a job, I was studying, and that was the first thing I found. I was like, yeah, okay. And to be honest, I didn't even like it at the beginning because it was not really BD, it was more sales actually. It was for an insurance company, and I don't want to, be like say something not nice about the insurance business, but I don't know. That wasn't my favorite one, I would say. And it wasn't only actually after a few years that I really started to like business development when I started working for a startup, a tech startup. And their business development was actually a lot more complex than just, doing cold calls, basically, which is what I was doing before. And we were doing a lot of different things. We were working a lot with marketing. We were doing a lot of cool campaigns like offline, online, but mostly we were trying just different things to get new customers, to get partnerships and so on. So there were a lot of things basically that I was doing, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing actually. But it kind of worked, except that in 2019, when then I started the BD school, things were not working for me anymore. I was doing business development for a SaaS company, and no matter how many cold emails I sent, nobody was replying to me. And I was like, okay, so what's happening here? And I started to look around for information about business development, and I found that actually many people were in my same situation. We kind of found business development along our path, but we weren't really sure what we were doing, and we were just winging it. And I found it a little bit crazy because I was like, I mean, there's so many people doing business development. How come that nobody knows what we're doing? Like it's either we're a bunch of randos that, like somehow we manage, or there can be a better way. And that's where I thought that maybe a platform where you could learn business development in a structured way could probably help. And that's where the BD School was born back in 2019. So that's in short my story. And more on a personal level, I'm Italian, 100%, hence my chatting probably. But I live in the Netherlands where we're based for not 10 years. So it's the company is, I would say, fully Dutch by residence, but fully Italian by heart.
Oh,
Lovely, beautiful. I love that. So let's start from the basics. So I guess everyone has in their mind what sales is, but I think maybe there might be a confusion between what is sales and business development for many people. So if we maybe start
Mhm.
from that level, how would you
Yeah.
separate the two?
Totally. So I would say, like, purely from a definition perspective, like when we're talking about business development, we're talking about all those initiatives like tasks, processes, strategies that we can put in place to generate long-term value for the company. Now, obviously, I find this definition a little bit like confusing, right? Because what is tasks, processes? It's a little bit of it's everything and nothing, right? So that
Yeah.
doesn't really say much. So a better way that I found to actually describe business development is really sort of a problem-solving approach to the challenges that the company is facing and finding innovative ways to win these challenges and in the process generate value for the company. Now, I think the main difference between sales is that sales is a lot more structured as a process. So you have one specific kind of customers, like your ideal customer profile, you have a specific buyer persona, and your goal is to get as many as possible of these ones, right? So you're kind of like going through the, let's say, already walked path, So you know what you have to do, you know who you're talking to, you know what are the pain points, what are the challenges, and then you just repeat the process as many times as necessary, right? To feed your pipeline and to generate revenue. While business development is what happens a little bit before, right? It's actually, okay, what are these type of clients that we need to figure out, right? So what type of problems are they facing? What type of services do they want, right? So what is the value proposition that we should create for them? Which markets are more valuable for us, right, to go to? So let's say business development happens before sales, I don't want to call it pre-sales because pre-sales nowadays is really about like doing the research about the prospects, preparing the cold emails and so on. So I think it
Downloading a
lost,
list.
yeah, right. So it lost a little bit the purpose. So it's not pre-sales in that sense, but everything that happens before you can actually market and sell a product or a service. And I think business development is kind of in between, marketing and sales, because like you're in that process of researching a lot, your market, your ecosystem, your customers, then building a product with the product or service team, right? Service design team, and then market it together with marketing and then selling it together with sales. So it's really much more experimental, and it's really like, okay, let's try to figure this out. And I think that's why most of us in BD, like, we're just trying to figure it out because that's literally what we do. And then once we found the formula that works, that actually generates value, that's where business development kind of takes a step back and then gives these tasks to sales, marketing, or product, basically to scale them and to build repeatable process that then make the company sustainable on the long term. A bit of a lengthy explanation, but with business development, it's not easy to just pinpoint one thing. It's too broad.
So I think a lot of when Lucy and I were talking, Alex, a lot of what we've done in our previous roles has been to try and fill this business development gap. So as marketing, we had marketing and then we had sales, but there was this gap, right? That because we didn't have business development teams often. And so we were trying to do both roles to try and give better value to sales so that we didn't get the constant cry of, oh, marketing's giving us rubbish leads. Oh, marketing sucks. Oh, too many leads today. Oh, too few leads today, which was like the constant battle we had, was to try and be smarter, right? About, is there another market? Because a lot of the marketing we stepped into was tried and tested. This was the plan. This is how it was done before. And we came in going, but hold on, digital's a thing. Why aren't we doing digital? Our customers are not responding to cold calling anymore. We need to try something else. And then we were doing the business development bit to try and create a new channel, establish a new process, train sales on what to do with these leads. They talk differently, they sound different. You can't say the same things as an outbound call. So that's what was really interesting to me, because I think until I met Lucia, I hadn't really separated the tasks into the three areas as clearly. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure the who you think question was for, but I absolutely agree with you. I found that we were doing a lot of discovery, sort of upfront discovery part, which was missing from a lot of the work that we're doing, which both enabled us to create more efficient campaigns, both on marketing and sales.
Yeah.
As you said, a lot of the businesses that you go into say, well, this is what we've been doing forever. We've just been doing this way of selling, this way of doing marketing. There's nothing else we need to do. And like you said earlier, Lucia, it's like people are walking the same path that's been walked over, years and years, or however long the business has been going. And often there is that discovery period that is missing. And like you said, it bridges the gap between the sales part and the marketing side.
Yeah, indeed. And just because I find that, because there are a lot of companies, and especially in the SaaS space, right? So more tech companies,
Yeah.
like they have these split roles, SDRs, BDRs, business development reps, sales development reps, and account executives, and so on. But in reality, that is not really a business development role, in the sense that that is the pre-sales we were talking about before, right? So
Pre-sales,
it's
yeah.
about like setting the account executive team for success, right? So I don't want to say glorified sales assistant, but that's a bit what these companies made them to be, because that's all they require from the BDRs is really just this. There is no creativity involved. It's just like, okay, do this automated cold email campaign and we're going to get clients. Except that doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't work anymore, because everybody's doing these cold email campaigns, And I find that companies that have this approach, that don't want to see the value of business development, they don't do business development properly, they're missing out on a lot of opportunities, because they're just so stuck on that one tactic that maybe used to work in the past. But our customers, our markets, new technology, everything is changing all the time, right? So you cannot keep doing the same thing that you did 10 years ago. And if you don't have a specific figure in the company that does that whose job is really to test new things, you're not really gonna innovate. So at some point, the next competitor is gonna come up, they're gonna do things better, they're gonna take advantage of all the new things happening, and you're irrelevant. And I see this with a lot of especially clients, bit larger companies, or more like, let's say, they don't have to be necessarily like old-fashioned, because there are also a lot of new companies that have the same approach, which is really not taking risks at the end of the day. Because business development at the end of the day is about taking risks, right? So there is always this thing, that companies measure BD in terms of revenue. But, sometimes in business development, we're doing things that don't generate any revenue. Most of the times it's a cost center, right? So companies that don't want to take this risk, they're also missing out on opportunities, because they just continue doing things as they always did, and that's they're going to be irrelevant at some point, so that's just how it is. So
No, go ahead, Erica.
I was just going to say, we worked with the lead generation company, and one of the reasons we worked with them is because they had an entire team on testing. Testing new channels, new messages, new creative, like there was a set team who did that, and then any successes were fed back to us as the client. And so that was really useful, because it meant we had to do less testing, although we always had, I think it was always 20% of our budget was test stuff, right? If we had our marketing spend, Alex, and 20%, 80% was on tried and tested and copy paste, and 20% was let's try this new thing and see how it goes. And then if it worked, great, it moved into the 80% budget. And if it didn't work, okay, bye, next one in, right? So that's kind of, I think, what I mean is a lot of marketers today are being expected that the business development role is just part and parcel of what they need to do. But if you need to keep on track, on top of all your channels, right? Like all your channels, all your messages, all your data, just reporting in terms of conversion rates and lead gen and all that kind of stuff. When do you have space in your head? You almost have to take a day off, right? To say stop, because this is a different thought process. It is innovative, creative, out of the box, much more customer centric than perhaps your normal day-to-day marketing work.
I mean, we found that issue where sometimes we get dragged into implementation.
Yeah.
As if our role is more of a strategic role, but somehow, and it does happen, sometimes we get dragged into implementation, and then we just suddenly realize that our face is so close to the work that we're doing that we can't actually take a step back and really take a kind of holistic view of what's going on.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
And there is so much going on, you know, like, and nowadays even more. But I remember the last company I worked for was a SaaS company, and it was 2018. So right before, that's what gave me the motivation to start the BD school, actually. And, you know, for like 4 months, I was only doing cold outreach, but it was all automated. We were already using like sales automation tools, you know, so it was like, first of all, I felt like I could be used more than what I was being used, you know. I was like, oh God, like I'm just operating a tool basically. But on top of that, it was not working. So there were two instances. The first one, I asked my boss, actually the founder, to let me do customer research, because I realized that the main problem why this thing was not working was that we didn't have a clue who we were talking to. So these emails that I was sending, they were completely relevant to people, because there was really like okay, I don't know who you are or what you're talking about, you know. So first thing like this, so not knowing their customers and facing a lot of resistance to even just talk to a few customers to better understand who they were and what they wanted, you know, so that I could make my work more efficient. But the other instance was back in 2018, like everybody was doing webinars. It was really the boom of webinars. And I was like, why webinar? You know, like everybody's doing it. So again, like I didn't manage to convince my founder, but I convinced the head of growth, then convinced the founder, and then eventually we managed to do this webinar. And this webinar was a success. Like we had 400 people signed up, which was insane for our first webinar. And we had a conversion right after the webinar. And I was like, guys, like in 1 month, I managed to get a lot more than the past 4 months. So don't you see that maybe if we do things a little bit differently, if we, you know, jump on trends, if we just copy what other companies are doing, if they're doing it well, like maybe we can also get the same benefits, you know. But if you just keep me sending these automated emails, it's not going to work out, you know. And eventually didn't work out because I quit. But also the person they hired after, they asked them to do exactly the same thing. So yeah, then eventually was they don't have business developers anymore. So they stopped with BD because
I think you touched on a really, really interesting point, and one we come across a lot often is the decision hierarchy. So you whatever position you may have in the role in the job, is that you might have a great idea for a new strategy or something like that, but often you get blocked in certain parts of the decision hierarchy, whether it's your boss or another boss. So, I mean, I really like that, what you said. I mean, kind of don't give up and find other avenues, and who might buy into it and might have a different way of presenting it to the other person that maybe you don't have the same connection with.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about influence, right? So, and I was very aware, like when I joined the company, in that case, for example, I joined because I had a friend in common. They were looking for someone. So, okay, I went in. But I was also very aware that I was the only business developer in the company, a role that they never had before. We were kind of trying to figure that out. So I was aware that I didn't have absolutely any influence, you know. Then there can be many reasons, but I think that's normal also. When you just start in a company, you kind of, I think you have to earn the respect and the influence, right? So it's not a given. Yeah. Obviously, the head of growth, like Ferdy, he just started like as a head of growth. So he was brought in with that specific position, and I actually got along really well with him. I learned a lot from him. So I was like, yeah, maybe I just passed through him. And that's also something I teach to our students, because the problem of influence with business development is real. Like you might be the most brilliant business development ever. You can have so many ideas and so on. If you don't have that level of influence in the company, you're just going to be very frustrated because nobody's going to listen to you. And then you have two options, right? So it's either you quit, which is what unfortunately many people do in BD. It's like there is such a high turnover, like 6 to 8 months turnover, super high. But either you quit or you accept that you don't have that influence, and you also accept that just like you don't know much about BD and you're trying to figure it out, maybe also your colleagues don't know, maybe your founder doesn't know. So your job is on one end to find the champions that can help you bring your ideas forward and help you gain this influence. And on the other hand, educate people in the team, right? Because maybe they don't know, like maybe they also have this idea that BD is actually just sales, is just a glorified title for sales, right? So why would you suggest to do a webinar? Why would you suggest to do this or that? Like, it's not your job, you know? So you need to educate your team also on this, and you need to be smart with the influence. So if you don't have it, accept it, and then become best friend with who has the influence, right? And use them for your goals.
But I also find if you have data-backed ideas, right? So
Yeah.
you just get the data, whether it's customer research, whether it's reports. There's so many reports out by everyone and his dog now. You can go and find some data. So use data-backed decisions. Alex and I had to convince a very traditional call center with direct mail was their 99% of their business to try digital, right? It really was a big ask for us, but we used data to show the move of customers, the trends, the other people that were getting success with data. It was a long journey, and not just to test it, but to change the process, right? In terms of, no, you can't call someone 12 weeks later like you can with a direct mail. You have to call straight away. Here is the data, right?
Yeah.
So you need to keep on top of your data to justify why you're recommending stuff. And I think going, I have an idea without data is not going to make you any friends. You're just
Oh yeah.
unless you're the son
Unless you're the owner, the
the
CEO or
or the
something.
son of the CEO,
Indeed.
or you've got some relationship in there that gets best you have your data to back you up.
Yeah, totally.
Really good point. And also what you were saying as well, Lucia, it sounds like someone who has the role of a business development manager, you need to have a lot of self-awareness and leave your ego at the door, because to be
Oh
able to
yeah.
that you don't have influence, for example, or that nobody's listening to you, I guess can be quite a hard thing for some people to, well, to accept and to realize, because it can be kind of damaging to your ego. But as soon as you can do that, you can say, okay, well, I can use that to my, advantage to move on. Who
Yeah.
do I not have influence with? Who do I maybe who can I connect with that can help me in this situation?
Yeah, totally. I think self-awareness is like very underrated as a skill to have. I think it's necessary for every aspect of life. But exactly what you say, Alex, like sometimes it's like, and I see it because I see a lot of people like that come to our training, to our certification program, and like there are two types of people, like the ones that are coming when they start a new job because they really want to do well, or the ones that come like before quitting, and you can see that because it's like, okay, I'm gonna try the last thing. If this doesn't work, I'm out. But then what I notice is indeed that in reality, like everybody has a big ego in the sense like, oh, they don't want to do this, they don't want to change that, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not gonna do this, like I'm gonna go somewhere else. Yes and no. Like I always suggest people, like I always suggest my students that they should always go where they are appreciated and valued and so on. However, I also tell them like, yeah, okay, but you literally just started. So, you need to, again, as I said before, you need to earn that respect and that influence. It's not given. Like it's not because you say, oh yeah, I'm a BD for like 5 years, that you automatically have the influence in the company. So no, you need to be self-aware, and you need to do like, I think what's important is that you're very goal oriented, right? So you have your specific goal in mind, and it's like, okay, I need to achieve this goal, right? So how do I do it? If I'm not able to do it on my own, how can I leverage my network? How can I leverage my relationships with my colleagues and so on to make it happen, right? And it's really about splitting, like kind of dividing yourself from your actually end goal. Because I mean, at the end of the day, again, unless it's your company, right? But if you're working for another company, well, your goal is to grow the company. And then I think you are a good business development manager if you accept that, and if you really work towards this goal regardless, and you're able to put your ego aside, that's for sure. And Actually, on what you were saying before, Erica, that kind of relates also to what you just said, Alex. The self-awareness is not only in terms of like, whether you have influence or not, but also really in terms of like, do you know what you're talking about? Because that also like, indeed you should have data, like that's for sure. But for example, we had one student once that just started to work in a new company. She was super creative and I love to work with her because she could really think out of the box. But within 1 month of working for this company, she made a presentation which was like basically she asked the company to create a brand new company. It was like it was super traditional business, and she wanted the company to be the e-commerce and this and that, and then the developers. And I was like, look, this is too much of an ask for like someone that is in a company for 1 month. And mostly due to the fact that you actually don't know how the product development process works. Like it is absolutely not realistic to expect that a development team, a software development team, leaves everything that they're doing so that they can build your new website in 1 month. It doesn't happen. Like it really doesn't happen. Even something basic as a WordPress website, it takes months, like.
Yeah.
So it's really highly unrealistic. So it's about indeed knowing the data, being self-aware, but also like doing a little bit of research and really figure out, okay, is my idea realistic? Like, can we actually do it? Because I think where things go wrong is really this, that sometimes people like the business developers that I know, they go to their manager with all these crazy ideas and so on, but they're too crazy. Well, I think it's better to start small. You do a little bit of things like the famous low-hanging fruits, right? So you focus on those little activities that can give the biggest impact. And then once you earn this respect and this influence in the company, then you can come up with crazy idea, But one step at a time, I would say. Well, I feel people always want to go
Also
fast.
being aware, for example, if it's a business owner run company, and if you want to change anything, remember you're asking them to change their
Their
baby,
dream.
their dream, and
Indeed.
they could be offended by anything. So you need to kind of really be aware of that.
Yeah,
I'm present.
I actually know about a business development person who was fired. That was not the reason given, but actually their proposal was so anti the idea that the owner had. And so they were let go, made redundant, all these nice words. But anyway, they
Yeah.
ended up jobless. And although they wasn't given the reason, you could read between the lines going, okay, no, you didn't say
Oh,
the
yeah.
right stuff.
Total, but I see, like I can justify, like business developers at the very first days, like they're just starting out the profession. In those cases, like even when I receive, for example, cold emails and so on, like I always spend a little bit of time to get feedback and so on. What I don't accept is either other business owners that do this kind of outreach or agencies that do this kind of outreach. It's like, oh, come on, like. I still remember one time a guy like sent me this email. He had his own company, design company, and it's like, oh, I was just checking your website, and your design looks outdated and blah blah blah. It looks ugly. So I responded like, I actually looked at it. I actually like that it looks ugly. So what do we do now? So it's like no, you don't do that. It's no. It's
I think we get probably 10 of those a week of do you know that your SEO is you could be reaching thousands more people, or like I
Oh yeah,
think yeah.
50K new customers per month. That's
Oh
the
yeah,
craziest I
no.
saw recently. Yeah.
The one I always hear is like, can you handle 20 sales calls a day?
Ah, yeah. Same.
Like
That one
Which is
no.
like, do you know any business owner or any company that wouldn't like to have 20 leads a day? Like, please mention me one, and like then we
Okay.
talk. But
Yeah.
So
too
you
much.
mentioned goals, being goal orientated, but I was just wondering if would you have any advice to CEOs or growth directors who have to create KPIs for their business development manager? Like I mean, someone might from the outset think the obvious thing might be revenue, but
Hmm.
that could probably be maybe not the best one to do. But so
Hmm.
I was wondering if there are any kind of KPIs that maybe people don't think about for a business development manager that are actually really, really important.
Yeah. So I think it always depends on how the company is set up, right? Because you have companies with, for example, one business developer doing everything, like marketing, sales, BD, everything. And then you have more organized teams where the business development actually is doing business development, and that's all they do. Now, my advice is always like, obviously, you should have like KPIs that are relevant to your business, right? So depending on how your business is set up, like those KPIs, if it's a number of clients, number of these, traffic or whatever, like those should be measured. But I think purely from the business development perspective, if we accept that business development is very experimental, that you need to try new things and so on. By the way, Eric, I really love the split of the 80-20%. That's also what we teach our students, to always focus 80% on what works, 20% on new things. So you spread the risks as well. But if we accept that BD is very experimental, then I think the best KPI to measure BD is return on investment. With that one, you can't go wrong, because then you can measure all sorts of different activities. So if you want to do a webinar, if you want to organize an event, if you want to, I don't know, do white papers and in collaboration with marketers, anything you want to do, you can measure it from the return of investment point of view, right? Because there it really tells you if it's worth it to continue with that activity or not. So it's very objective, and it really gives you a good idea of whether you're investing your time properly or not. While I find that the revenue is very limiting for business developers, because it's, again, if they do a lot of activities that are very experimental, you always have the risk that they don't generate revenue. So then good luck after 3 months being measured on revenue. You're going to be fired, or your boss is not going to be happy, that's for sure. But that's the same also for the, tech companies that have the SDRs, BDRs versus account executives. Also, the business development reps at these companies often are measured in terms of revenue, which is a revenue that is not generated by them directly. Like they're just opening conversations, and then it's the account executive that has to close these deals. So I don't understand in what world it's fair that I am measured on something that someone else has to do. That doesn't make any sense. So in that case, for example, in the case more tech companies, so where they have this split, typically what they measure is more like the number of opportunities generated, right? And then I suggest, if you really want to measure the revenue, you can do the opportunity revenue generated, right? So how much you could potentially get with that. Yeah, indeed, pipeline. But also there, like it's very relative. It doesn't really tell you if you're doing a good job or not. It's like maybe you have like 10 appointments a day, but they're all crappy leads. So
But and it also, I think there's so much in it that you need to know about the business. If you have a quick sales cycle, right? So you talk to someone, they go, "Oh yeah," and they can click a button and it's done. That's much easier. But especially your tech companies, insure, like some of them have really long sales cycle, right? So I think it's about and that's why pipeline for me is a good one, because it's filling that pipeline in terms of where people are in the stages, right? So if you think about a pipeline, maybe not the initial appointments, although that's the start. If you don't have your initial appointments, you're never going to get anyone moved. But to how many proposals sent, how many, deals are in progress. Maybe there's in some businesses there's due diligences that have to happen first. There's a whole lot of other actions before there's any money seen. And the opposite of that is also true, where the premium is tiny. And I'm saying premium like I'm thinking insurance now, right? So you make a sale, but you're literally getting in £10 a month. So if you calculated your premium or your revenue from that, you'd look terrible, right? You've spent a fortune, and then you're looking at lifetime value rather, right? So you need to say, okay, no, the lifetime value that I've generated with this activity is X, not I've generated £10, right? Like, because otherwise you'll just cancel everything you're ever doing. So I think there's a lot of intricacies. I also want to just talk, we spoke about marketing and BD being joined, but I think a lot of the time it's also sales and BD it's one person being expected to do the sales and the BD. And I think for that, I think my important message would be, understand that that's what you're doing. And that's maybe think about 20% BD, because you still need to do the sales activity. You still need to be calling, closing. You still need to be doing all that activity, but you need to create space to do this other activity going, well, how else am I going to get people through the door today? And this is where I think, experimenting with, let me try LinkedIn. I've never tried LinkedIn before. Insurance, I'm seeing a lot of that kind of, especially in brokers, where before referrals worked, right? I had referrals. I never had to do any work. It was great. Guess what? Now it's not working so much anymore. Now what? What do I do? I now need to try different, and that's a BD activity. So those exact words, what used to work isn't working for me anymore. I need to think of something else. That is BD thinking.
Yeah.
Straight away, right?
That is, I think I'm going to write it somewhere. I'm going to write this quote because that's exactly the point. Right? And you can't imagine, especially last year, it's like, well, obviously the economy is not doing that well, right? For many of us. Sorry. But, we had a lot, including a very big insurance company that came to us for these reasons. Like, look, in an up economy, we don't need anything. It works. We don't even have to do anything. People come to us, except that, now the economy is not that great. So what do we do? What do we do next, And that's pretty much like most of the people that come to our training, they really come for that because it's like, okay, it's not working anymore. So what's wrong? And what's wrong is just that they didn't innovate early enough, and now they have to catch up. And good luck catching up, especially if you have a team, that has been used, like, let's say you work for like more traditional company, you have your team there for 20 years. It's really difficult to change their mindset if they've always worked in the same way and you never challenge them, you never really open the door to more innovation and so on. It's really, really difficult to do that. You can do like all the training and so on, like, it's difficult. It's difficult to change people's mindset when they've been used to that all the time. That's why, like, I think companies should really embrace a little bit of an experimental approach because I think that's really the only way you can make your company future-proof, nowadays. So yeah, that's a lot of work to do.
Just what you're saying about those who have just been doing the same thing forever and ever, and it's very hard to change. And another part that makes it very hard to change is what they're measured on. So if they're measured on revenue and the sales team is measured on how many sales they're getting, they don't have any incentive whatsoever to take a break from what they're doing to try something new that, the marketing or BD guy said, because they're just like, no, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to get my bonus at the end of the month.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like, I think the problem for me there is to blame on the management, because at the end, they are the only ones with the authority of changing this. Like, at the end of the day, if you oblige your team to do something, some people are not going to do it and they're going to quit, but the other ones, they're going to be forced to do it at some point. They have to change if they want to keep their jobs. Except that it's the same, right? It's a chain, right? So the manager is going to be measured on other things, and so then they have to convince their manager. And why should I do that? It's going to cost me a lot of energy. Why? At the end of the day, it's not my company. It's like, why do I care? And it goes up and up, until top leadership. So I think it's really something that needs to start from the top, but also like. Because there are a lot of business development managers, that they're really creative. They love this part of the business development process, which is really coming up with new ideas, testing with new things and so on. And then eventually they're forced to leave because they really don't have any space to do that, So on one end, it needs to come from the top. So companies need to take more risks. They need to be more open to the business development process. And on the other hand, like, the teams also need to be open for that. And the ones that already have that in themselves, that are more creative and so on, they should be rewarded for that. Now, I have an example. So one of the last companies I worked for is online auction house, basically based in Amsterdam. And what we were doing there as BD was mostly cold outreach, mostly cold calling, actually. That works. It's very traditional businesses were calling, so it works. Except that also there at some point, there's just as much that you can do, as many calls that you can do. So at some point, some of my colleagues were like, oh, can we do this initiative? Oh, can we do this? And the management kind of picked up on that and said, wait a minute, like, we have a team of very smart people that are coming up with all these ideas all the time. why don't we give them these extra projects that they can work on? And we measure them also on that. So basically, they were measuring how many extra projects we were doing. So they were seeing also how much time we were spending on that and what we were getting out of them. We were not getting a bonus, monetary bonus on that, but we had like little gifts or like a little appreciation. Like I remember we were doing the kickoff, sales kickoff, and my manager knows like, oh yeah, she's the queen of calling or something like that. You know, something basic, because at the end of the day, I think people don't always need money to be recognized, you know, for their work. They want to be recognized though, you know. So again, companies, they don't have to go crazy, you know, in terms of incentivizing business developers. A little bit of recognition, I think, would go a long way in that case, together with a general willingness of the company to try different things, to experiment and to embrace change.
One of the things that's worked for me, especially with a big team that's reluctant to change, is there will be a few that are open, right? So find your little, whether it's guinea pigs you want to call them, or test pilots, or and start with that, you know, start with 3 or 4 who are eager, who are energetic, who want to try it. Because once they are successful and, you know, making better sales than anyone else because they've implemented, everyone else will follow. So instead of
Indeed.
trying to change everyone and go, right, from tomorrow, you will all post daily on LinkedIn or something like that, where everyone's going, what? Start with a small, passionate team, get them up and running, get them excited. It's also easier to provide support. Get them to present their findings to the senior team. I think even that people love, right? Getting an opportunity to present to the senior team, some FaceTime with the CEO, right? That kind of opportunity people love. And then roll it out once, well, everyone else will come knocking, going, hey, why don't I have this? Or why can't I do that? So I think that's, you know, think strategically about what's the easiest way to get the best result, I think.
Yeah, really, definitely work smarter, right? Rather than harder. It's like, it's also the other thing. I think today I shared the post on LinkedIn talking exactly about this. It was like, these managers, when things don't go well, like the first thing they do is like, okay, we're gonna do more calls, you know, like do more emails. If these emails and calls are not working, there is a reason. So you need to understand what's that reason, you know, and then tackle that issue. But the answer cannot be just to do more. Like, indeed, you need to work smart and really like, yeah, try to see what you can leverage, what can get you that initial success so that you can build on that, right? Which I think it's also good, like to build confidence and everything, but step by step, start small and you grow from there.
Yeah. And one of the other things that, you know, I think a really good BD would bring is future thoughts. So it's not just about we're burning, something's not working, oh my goodness. It's looking ahead at, hey, this is changing. This could affect us in a year's time. I better make a plan, right? I mean, if you think about all the US businesses that were off TikTok, okay, it only was 8 hours, but you know, oh no, like we've lost all our revenue of TikTok for 8 hours. That was being warned for months, right? Like it wasn't a surprise. There was a heads up, it was coming. Like a good business development going, okay, this is what is our plan B here? What else is there? What would we do so that the pivot and change is quick and easy and seamless and you haven't lost revenue rather than panic stations. Oh my goodness, it's the end of the world. I mean, luckily it was 8 hours for a lot of businesses because a lot of businesses would have been wiped out, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
But
because they basically,
they
it's also like,
knew.
indeed, but it's also the case, you know, like a while ago. So now it's a bit less. Now they diversified, but there were a lot of companies. Like it was a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago. There were so many companies doing LinkedIn automation. I don't know if you noticed that, but there were like so many LinkedIn automation tools. Like every day there was a new one. Except that at some point LinkedIn started to block all of them. Like I know two founders of very big companies. They were banned from LinkedIn for years because of this. You know, and I was like, that's, to me it doesn't really seem like a smart decision, like to create a tool for one specific thing, you know, that is not proprietary. You know, at the end of the day you rely on this other platform that tomorrow might close, and what do you do? It's the same for companies, like let's say they do only cold outreach, or they only do Instagram, or they only do LinkedIn. Yeah, go for it. But at some point, first of all, there is a natural like sort of exhaustion of that channel. So at some point it's going to decline and you really can't do anything about that. But the other thing is, it is not something that you control, you know. At some point, if something changes, regulations or anything, indeed, your business is gonna blow. And what do you do, you know? While indeed in BD, at the end of the day, it's like when I talk about long-term value, it's really this, right? It's like, how can we make sure that the company exists 5 years from now, 6 years from now, you know? Now, for example, like, basic example, I noticed, like, one thing I noticed that which we all notice, like, LinkedIn is becoming Facebook 2.0. Like, it's too much, like pictures of babies, pictures of, like, there is anything happening now, you know, like it's becoming very polarized now with political news and so on. Like, it's really becoming a Facebook 2.0. And not only that, but the barrier is so low to entry that everybody's spamming everyone with cold messages everywhere. So even if you post every day and you post something super relevant, there is always going to be that bot or that other creator, you know, that is talking about the same thing forever and ever, that is going to take attention, you know. So one thing we're doing, for example, is to focus a lot less on LinkedIn and focus a lot more on YouTube, which is actually booming. And they actually reduce a lot of limitations, like in terms of how you can be monetized, or in terms of how your content is shown and so on. They're really trying to facilitate creators. I mean, obviously they make money off creators, so why not, you know? But that is one thing is happening right now. So why keep being on LinkedIn and just focus 100% on that, while you could start to build up another channel, you know? Like, you don't need to go full on that, but you can post a video here and there, you know? Like, in our case, we posted videos on YouTube for maybe 3 years now, but we didn't really focus on it. We were just posting like a webinar per month, which is a webinar that we do, and then we just post on YouTube. But it was just growing like organically alone. And we said, okay, maybe there's something here. What if we put a little bit of effort on this? You know, we can diversify, we do something that our competitors are not doing, and we can make sure that we increase our audience over there as well. So yeah, indeed, totally. It's really about like thinking about the future and make sure that you're there, like that there is a future for your company. Otherwise, it's it's not going to be there.
Lucia, as we said, we could probably end up talking for hours and hours and
Yeah.
hours. If anyone wants to talk to you more about either the services of your company or just business development in general, how do they get hold of you?
So absolutely, they can find me on LinkedIn, Lucia Piseddu. I don't know if after you want to share my link, but you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always active there still. I'm still always there. So if you send me a message there, I will definitely be happy to see you there. And then if you want to check our content, as mentioned, our YouTube is kind of our focus for the coming months. So check out the BD School Official on YouTube. You're going to find hundreds of videos related to business development that can really help you to advance your skills in BD, or even just to learn more about business development. And obviously our website, thebdschool.com, where you can find a lot more other content, courses, everything to help you grow your BD career. So pretty much everywhere.
Fabulous. Oh, Lucia, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. It's been wonderful. Alex, anything you want to end with?
I mean, to be honest, I couldn't say anything better than Lucy has said. So today I'm going to...
Alex, you're so nice. Can I come again to another episode?
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed.
Me too.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
That wraps up this episode of Giraffes Don't Eat Steak. Thanks for joining us. I hope you found value in our discussion and got some new ideas to apply to your own business. Tune in next week for another round of marketing insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate you listening. Catch you next time on Giraffes Don't Eat Steak.